derogatory word towards women. It's not allowed in my presence in my own home. Same as other words.
But why aren't you bringing this passion to what to him?
But I did. I have constantly said that
they're my words.
Hold on, Anna.
Do you not see the irony?
Yes,
of you saying that these words are unacceptable to you, but yet they are acceptable, and you are willing to come on TV and be an apologist for a candidate who is running for the highest office in the land, and yet is saying these words? Apparently, Scottie, when Donald Trump says pussy, he's referring to a baby cat. But when I say it, you find it crass and offensive.
Why?
You know, because he's
hold on, let her respond.
I think it is inconsistent, and I think you have no self-awareness of what you are saying.
All right, so Scottie, tell us.
Insane it sounds.
You get what the allegation is. What are you saying?
It's very simple. That was a taped conversation that was never supposed to hear. Doesn't make it right, and I have said time and time again, I do not agree with the words. I do not agree that he used them. No woman should ever be
on
talking
camera
about
and mic'd.
It
wasn't private.
Here's the thing. Well, it was not supposed to be, but that's beyond it. That was 11 years. The rest was about
background overall
of the past. Everything dealing with all the scandals and the media bias was 10 minutes, and he lumped it all together to Jeffrey's point.
Right, but it was everything other than issues about his first.
But I think it all goes back to the idea of what is the media focusing on? What are they focusing on? What is the stories they're making their headlines be out of? They're not talking about the fact that he wants to rid the swamp, that he wants to put in term limits.
By the way,
he's not
talking about it.
Talking about it for the majority of it. You're just focusing on one line.
The moment that I will never forget in this debate, among many moments, was interviewing Donald Trump in his office the day after FBI Director Comey's report came out on the email scandal in July, and saying to Donald Trump, this is a gift, you're going to be talking about this for the next, weeks and weeks and weeks. And he said, I can talk about it for about 5 minutes at the rally, and then everybody gets bored, and I've got to go back to the wall, and I've got to go to the polls. And it was sort of like that moment crystallized him, for me. He's a showman. He's a performer. He needs, those applause. The idea of prosecuting an argument.
48 hours later, with the cursing and the pictures that are showing up to try to prove their point, it seems like they're in the biggest mud pile ever. What were you doing 11 years ago? Do you want to be held accountable for everything you were doing? People make mistakes, and he apologized.
That's why I don't run for office, Scottie. That's why I don't run for office. That's why I am a private citizen, because I realize that I am not perfect, and I don't want my life on a magnifying glass. Now, I will tell you what. Why don't you answer, what was he doing 11 days ago? He was tweeting at 3 a.m. in the morning, disgusting tweets about Alicia Machado. So he has not been an angel playing the harp for the last 11 years. He has been lewd and crass the entire time.
Appreciate both of you.
Going off there. But what my question is Anna, for the last year, I've heard you bash Mr. Trump. Who are you supporting? Who are you supporting? I would love to know that question.
Scottie,
we're 13 days out.
Well, first of all, let me just say this. I haven't been bashing him for the last year. I've been bashing him for the last 19 months.
So
since June 16th, 2015. When
who are you supporting?
Well, do you want to let me answer, or do you just want to continue interrupting me?
Just go on. It's a real simple answer. Who are you supporting?
I am voting, writing in my mom.
Congratulations,
and by the way, it makes her feel.
That's
well, you know what? It is,
and maybe others too, but this is the issue right now. We
Scottie, let me tell you this. No. You've interrupted me plenty. Let me tell you this. I am an American citizen just like you. I may not have been born here. I've got every right to vote my conscience.
Absolutely.
If my conscience does not allow me to support either the Republican or the Democrat, then I'm going to write in whomever I want. Maybe it's LeBron James, maybe it's my mother.
Let's deal with the issue.
And I have every right to do it. You have no right to question me who I'm going to support, because every single American realizes that they have every right.
If you're going to offer a problem,
and I have said 120 times that I am writing.
I've heard you say that before, but she's not alone. A lot of people feel that they can't support either candidate. What's wrong with that answer?
No, that's why I said it's a great, but I don't know if that's a feasible solution right now. Does that solve the problem of 25% increase in health care? Does that solve the problem of...
Scottie, you already went through those talking points. Can we get a little bit more items from the menu?
The babies that might be suffering because of emails, to find out the truth of what happened years later.
It's transparent until there's a hot mic, right? And then when you get a hot mic, you get the real Donald Trump, not what he's been putting out there. And as it relates to these women, a number of these women sat here with Anderson Cooper and on national TV told...
Once again, words.
Wait, allege everything. Scottie, these women and very powerfully explained why, never reported their case. And the woman who was on the airplane, she was so afraid to report her case because she believed she would be fired.
But it was a false case. We have now seen the evidence that backs up that you've had a person come out and said it did not happen the way she
There's
flight stewardess say there's
nothing's been proven false or
no
true.
evidence on across the board.
Mentions it to her.
His comments.
So I don't. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't
Scottie,
suggest
come on,
any
this is
man
so
to
beneath
mention
you
weight
to
on this
defend
side.
this.
But this was his. It was a specific role. He might not have phrased it the right way, but at that time he brought people in to encourage her at her request to help her with her weight issue.
Okay, now let's say
so beneath you to defend this, Scottie. And Alicia Machado just did an interview with Anderson Cooper that said it was repeated abuse, that he repeatedly humiliated her. She was 19 years old.
Let's listen to
Those are a selfish answer, and I respect it.
No, it's not a selfish answer. It is my right to vote for whomever I want. It is my right to make the statement I want to make or not make.
I mean,
if I have voted for the Republican nominee every single time in my lifetime, and this year I feel compelled to be repelled and repulsed and reject that man, it is my right, and it is what I will do. And you are nobody to question my choice.
You are not helping the GOP.
No, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I am not helping the GOP. You're right. Because you know what? I was a Republican when he was a Democrat. I was a Republican when he was an independent. And I'm going to be a Republican when he gets tired of playing this little game. So none of you, not you who came on the scene just a little bit ago,
I've been on for a while, Anna. I just want to let you know.
My Republican creditas.
You try to put down younger voters, but some of us have been active.
Guys, hold on. Obviously, we won't engage in it.
Walked in locker rooms, Don, while women were changing for pageants.
Well, teenage.
Okay, hold on.
Well, teenage.
No,
hold
on. That has not been proven. Once again, there is not.
He said it himself.
But that doesn't mean he did it. First of all, let me just say this. I'm going to
Scottie, before you respond, Scottie, he did say it himself again on Howard Stern. He said that he walks into the room as entree, and he's like, I have to, inspect the place. But go on.
And the frustration that a lot of people feel, lifelong Republicans who say that they won't be able to vote for Donald Trump.
I respect that. But the majority of them have said, you know what, I don't like him, but I definitely don't like her. So either A, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump because I do not support Hillary Clinton, or B, I'm going to be quiet about it and just let things go its way. Sit this election out.
Oh, I don't think so. Condoleezza Rice is not being quiet. Dana Perino's not being quiet. Barbara Bush is not being quiet. Laura Bush is not being quiet. Meg Whitman's not being quiet. So
we don't pay Anna to be quiet.
That's
we
a good
want
point.
Anna's opinion on this.
Absolutely.
So, and that's.
So you think you're saying all of these women, let me just be clear about this. You're saying all of these women who are coming out are lying.
Anything anything, I would take it have a lot better sense of giving them legitimacy to it if it would have been months ago, weeks ago, years ago. When we're talking about something from 10,
okay, let me ask
years
you this.
ago,
Let me ask you something.
And it's
Let me ask you something, Scottie, and I want you to be honest about it. What did you think about the Bill Cosby accusers? Did you think the same thing about them?
Well, it's a different situation because Bill Cosby was not on a timeline where he had somebody running against him, where someone that was we're in a race here where it's the male versus the female.
As far as the allegations, it was the same thing. Those women were asked, why didn't you come out sooner? And they explained that it was a very powerful person, and they didn't feel comfortable with coming out at the time, and it was different times. Women, were not, seen as credible in those days, even though they should have. It was a different time. And so these women are saying the exact same thing. Hold on, let me finish, and I promise I'll let you get in. And not only in this case, but for women who have been, victims of sexual assault or touched inappropriately, or they will say the same thing, that they didn't feel comfortable coming out. It's not just the accusers of Donald Trump. Many women say that.
But what I'm saying is that those women, the difference in Bill Cosby and Donald Trump is there's actual evidence that happened with those women, and it was not in a time period just 26 days before an election against somebody else. That's what makes this very questionable. And there are holes in some of these women's arguments. But the whole point about this is, Don, we've spent this entire show talking about this instead of what really is the main issues, which we need to be focusing on.
Well, I think this is
it's not
this is a
more
very
important than John
issue.
Podesta.
Listen, it's important.
Not worth 24/7 coverage, Don.
I have to say that that's really insulting, especially as someone who is a survivor of sexual abuse and who is a product of a single mother and was raised with all sisters and aunts and who looked after me. I would say that this is a very important issue in American society right now, and we should be discussing it in a more substantive way. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
Does reflect your character and integrity.
Yeah,
so
when you're not running for president.
Yes, it does. Donald Trump
There is no man of stronger character and integrity has been proven by
the man
who's
been married 3 times, who publicly shamed his wife when he was cheating on her with his mistress. That's a man of integrity for you.
A man who sat there and paid a woman's farm off after her husband committed suicide to get money.
A measure of a man's integrity is how they handle adversity.
I'm going to stop
the measure of a man's integrity is how he handles adversity, and the way he handles adversity is by lashing out at women.
I have to leave it here.
Thanks
to both of you.
Doesn't Donald Trump continue to just step on his message every step of the way? I mean, he seems like he cannot. It seems like any other candidate would have been able to make a more coherent argument over, to Patrick's point, over months and months and months, without having, the headline this weekend being, I'm going to sue these women when I get into office.
But I think he has. I mean, let's look at it.
George, let's not waste any more time. These stories were fabricated. They're total lies.
So you're going to go through with the lawsuit?
We'll find out. Let's see what happens with the election.
He says these women just want fame, and he's non-committal about whether or not he will sue them. How's this message going to go over?
Well, this is great drama for ratings and for television, great fodder for people to talk about. But when it comes down to the voting booth, and when you're seeing your health insurance premiums go up by 25%, when you're seeing possible jobs...
You think all this, excuse me, you think all this will be forgotten?
Well, I don't know necessarily forgotten. I think it's in the background. But I think people, when they come down to that voting booth, they're pushing their button. They're not going to push it based on what he said, but more importantly, go up by 25%. When you're seeing possible jobs,
you think all this, excuse me, you think all this will be forgotten?
Well, I don't know necessarily forgotten. I think it's in the background, but I think people, when they come down to that voting booth, they're pushing their button. They're not going to push it based on what he said, but more importantly, the actions of what he's promising for the future of America. I think that right now, when you are hurting, that's what matters most.
Okay, what do you think about that, Anna?
Look, I think we are at a level of almost being numbed to it. I really can't keep track anymore of how many women have come out and accused Donald Trump.
At least 11.
Okay, at least 11, but we are numb. And actually, I think it's really interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. Sexual harassment, sexual assault is the untold story, not of this election, of 2016. We saw very powerful, very wealthy, very famous men like Bill Cosby, like Roger Ailes, like Donald Trump, who did this for years and years and years and years. We've seen women who waited decades to come out and tell their stories, and who finally were compelled to do it because of timing, because they didn't want these men to get away with it. And we saw that Bill Cosby is going to stand trial. Roger Ailes lost his job. Don't know what's going to happen with
this was an issue
Donald Trump.
We dealt with this in the NFL. For one reason only.
He talks about them.
To hurt Donald Trump with the women. But when you're asked about it,
by the way, we haven't covered these women in days, and Donald Trump brought it up this weekend at a major policy address, addressing what he was going to do in the first 100 days.
You guys blame the media. It's him. He can't get away from wanting to.
He talked about it again today.
Because he's showing once again the falsehood of these, that everybody can throw mud at the wall, and you're going to cover it, and you're going to show it instead of actually showing when he talks about the majority of that.
I guess my question is, why is he still talking about it?
Why does he stop?
Well, because he's saying, look at all of the false narratives that continue, that nobody holds them to accountable. Those women to actually say whether or not, but they're going to hold me accountable without any evidence of. They're already going to be the judge, jury, trial, and prosecutor.
So you want him to continue talking?
No, I definitely don't want him to. I want him to discuss policy. There is no doubt about that one.
But a Republican nominee. It's not about a Republican presidency. The bottom is falling out for candidates who are down ballot, for senators, for members of the House of Representatives who are Republicans, who are suffering now because your guy at the top of the ticket didn't do his homework, hasn't prepared, isn't running a serious race, and is now facing serious allegations from women across the country. And now very good Republicans, moderate Republicans, Republicans who would have been in the Senate, who would have allowed for and could still allow for a real working bipartisan consensus in the legislative level with the Democrat or Republican at the top of the ticket, might lose their seats now. That's what we're facing.
Margaret, so what could Melania say? And her last time that she came out and spoke, she was completely ripped to shreds. What could she say that would make the liberal
it was plagiarism in the speech?
Melania Trump. I mean, Melania Trump shouldn't be responsible for Donald Trump's actions any more than Hillary Clinton should be responsible for Bill Clinton's actions.
She hasn't come
Whatever happened to the conservative idea of personal accountability?
All right.
Well, it's also called honesty and truth. And this is Pandora's box, because right now what we're saying is women can come out and throw these things against anybody, even against the people within our own companies right now, because there's no
but most of them have corroborating witnesses from 10, 20 years ago. So were they all plotting 20 years ago that they told a friend because they knew that in 2015, 2016, Donald Trump was going to run for president? And then this would be a very long-term conspiracy.
Nothing was ever documented. It's not documented. In fact, as many people of these women that are saying that they're right,
Do you ever hear of the concept of a witness? You know, at a trial, a witness's testimony is